Hey everybody, hopefully you're having a decent Christmas. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Hopefully you're doing okay today. This is kind of a last minute impromptu show. Thought it would be a good opportunity to hang out with a few people who might need some extra support. Let me try to turn off my Do Not Disturb so it stops banging in my ear. So hopefully you are having an okay day. We can cover some topics and stuff like that. If you want to sign... Hold on, now I got to figure out what the hell I'm doing. If you want to sign up for the SMS notification, I've revamped some of my slides, or the way it works, so I forgot that I had to put a different button. If you want to sign up for the SMS notification, you can do that by texting DSDLIVE to all one word to 844-598-0012. That's 844-598-0012. Just put that in there. That'll add you onto the SMS text notification, bypassing YouTube's notification system, which is outstanding, by the way, and letting you know whenever I am actually doing something. Which I will say, last week I did a morning show every day, Monday through Friday. It was interesting to get back in the groove of that. Technically, with it being Christmas and off, I obviously didn't do the 6 a.m. thing, but I will be back tomorrow at 6 a.m. for the hour-long morning, get your morning started to breaking the cycle with DSD live show. Oh, I guess I should hit my comments so that comes up. I might actually... See, now I have a little bit of a dilemma, because if I hit this button to bring up the slides, it doesn't bring up, then I have to go like this to do the other thing. I think I outsmarted myself and created a problem. Oh no, I'm moving things. So much for locking the scene. Jeez, sorry about that. I wonder if I can do this one. All right, there we go. I apologize for that. Anyways, we got a few people online already. And I don't expect a ton of people because of the holiday, but for the guys and gals who have seen the live show and clicked in, let's say hello to them. So, did you see it? It says, Merry Christmas, Duane and Debbie, and all those healing from the Narc's wounds. Merry Christmas to you too. Did you see that? And hopefully your healing process is going very well. Tim says, Merry Christmas to all, and to all a day away from the Narc destroying efforts. Okay. I've always have this thing where it's like, it's such a rough topic and I try to keep it kind of light. I hope everyone appreciates that. But that was funny, Tim. I appreciate that. Ruben says, Merry Christmas, brother. Merry Christmas to you, sir. You say, it's been a tough one, bro. Dude, I understand exactly what you're saying. And honestly, the holidays are the worst time on this, just because, even in the beginning, even when I had the kids, it was bittersweet because the whole marriage and relationship was gone. And then every year after that, it made the holidays very stressful because there's always this lingering unknown. I mentioned this a couple of shows ago about, someone made a comment and it reminded me, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. That for the longest time, I had very negative memories of the holidays and Christmas from being a kid. I mean, even when I first got married, before we had kids, and even actually when we had kids, Christmas was a very difficult time for me because of all those memories of stress and anxiety, and am I going to see my dad, and is it going to be a crap show? And normally it was, unfortunately. So it was really a tough scenario. The weird part is actually after the divorce, I actually started enjoying Christmas more. And then it just, it kind of degraded over time. And actually, I think I could be incorrect in this assessment, but I do think this is going to be the first time in 12 years that I have not seen Okay, actually, nope, there was one other time. I was going to say, first time in 12 years, I haven't seen my kids on Christmas Day. There was a time, remember I mentioned this the other day, where I accidentally agreed to see the kids on Christmas Eve. But yeah, I mean, one of them came over yesterday and the others have texted me, but I think it's going to be, what, Dad? Who is that? It's really kind of frustrating. You know what? I wonder if, I'm sure there's some moms who experience the same thing, but it's kind of bizarre how it seems like statistically, guys, dads are more often than not forgotten. So kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show, just to, if you're sitting there by yourself, excuse me, you know, and maybe give you a little break, get a little break for the day. So, and my sad guess is that probably there are some moms on here who absolutely are experiencing the exact same thing, where it's like, you know, hey, there's another parent over here. Literally, all you got to do is call, or, you know, anyways. Not to be a downer. Hopefully that was not a downer thing. If by chance, I just want to show you this. If by chance I do turn on the phone calls, if somebody wants to call in, let me know. I created a new button for it. So now it'll be easier to know that there's a live caller. So we shall see. We shall see how that works. Whoops, I got to scroll back up. April says, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you. Oh, hey, it says, hey, Duane, I used to be Shasha. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Blast from the, that's OG name right there. Wow. Come out from, obviously you're moved past it and you're coming out with more of who you are. It is outstanding. And I'm assuming, so hopefully I'm not incorrect on that. Excuse me. Hopefully you are on the other side of this and living a good life. Heather says, Merry Christmas to all. Merry Christmas to you, Heather. John Halfley says, Merry Christmas, y'all. Merry Christmas, sir. Hopefully you are having a good one. NH Rebels says, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, sir. Did you see it? Says, I'm healed, blue face, smiling. Ooh, I want to see what that looks like on the other side, on my other screen. Outstanding. Hold on, I gotta, I'm healed. Let me do this. Congratulations. Did you see it? I'm glad you are on the other side of this. That is no simple feat. It is a very hard-earned victory to get to the other side of this. Ruben says, I had a family, excuse me, I had a family and it seems like I lost everything. I still have my daughter in my life, but she's moving out of state, and it just seems like as hard as I tried, it slipped through my fingers. Ruben, I can absolutely understand and relate to that. Hopefully she's moving out to live her own life and not moving out to go hang out with the other parent. Not that that's a problem, but I will say that I think it's easier if your kids grow up and they're living their life and they're doing their thing, as opposed to just getting away from you, if that makes sense. So hopefully you're doing okay, Ruben. And I'm assuming that you're saying with her moving out of state, my assumption is she's 18 and moving on with a career, with college. Maybe I'm incorrect with that. You'll have to let us know if you want to. April congratulates, did you see it? Outstanding. John says to Ruben, it's all going to be different after this battle. Salvage what you can and let the rest go as best you can. I'm not catching that. It sucks, brother, but it will get better. It does. And you have to process what you've gone through and heal from it. Don't just ignore it. Don't put it in a box under a bed. You really want to make your peace with it, because when you do that, when you're able to do that, you really break free from it and you take your life back. And unfortunately, it is not an easy thing to do. It's very annoying that we go through these nightmares And our reward, for lack of a better word, is a lot of work and pain to get to the other side of this. I mean, so if you're new on the channel, and we hit a couple people who've talked about being on the other side of this, just know that there is a pathway through this. And it's not winning the lottery, though that would help. It's not necessarily that the ex gets held accountable, although that would help. It's not that the kids recognize the badness of the other parent and says, please, please, please save me. That would kind of help. It's none of that. It's like you have to make your peace with this catastrophe of a situation and take your life back and realize how empowering it is when you do that. It's hard. It's really hard. Don't get me wrong. But that when you're able to do that, it really fundamentally shifts everything in your life. And it's hard to explain until you've experienced it. So, I mean, that's kind of what this whole channel / show is about, is to try to put that out there that, hey, it may suck today, but it's not going to suck forever. And this gives me a good opportunity to just add in this one little thing. There was periods in time in the past where it would get it would get better, but it still was painful. So early on in this, I used to think, well, okay, this is like losing, I mean, I haven't lost a limb, but I'm assuming it's like losing a limb, and you can learn how to work past it, and you're always going to have that pain. And what I will tell you is, even when I got to those points where I'm like, wow, my life is better, but okay, there's this residual issue that I shall have to deal with, it went down and kept getting better with time. So what I'm trying to say is life continued to get better. And again, it was not like I had some crushing victory. It's not like I was made whole, like all the money and everything I'd lost came back. I obviously didn't get time back with the kids. You know, I had only half time, and a lot of that was corrupted by the wonderful antics of the ex. But, you know, you make the most of it. And you realize that if you stay angry and PO'd at your ex, effectively what you're doing is you are giving them a victory, a continued victory, space in your mind, and finally, a sweet, sweet narcissistic supply that they just do not deserve. Well, that was a tirade. Hopefully you appreciated that. Linda says, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, Linda. April says, I'm healing. Last year has been great. I'm almost a normal, happy human. I got to do this again because I like that comment. That is outstanding, April. And like I said, it's a hard victory to get to that point. Did you see it? Says, my son said, quote, best Christmas ever this morning after he said, quote, because dad's not here to ruin it. Bittersweet, but validating. Oh, that's rough. You know, and you bring up a great point, because a lot of times whenever we see the kids crushed by it, it actually doesn't feel good. It's like, oh, this sucks. You know, I mean, I remember the first time that happened with me, initially I thought, yeah, you know, this is going to be, I'm like, yeah, haha, you know, and then when it happens, you're like, oh man, this sucks. But anyways, John, stuck at work. John Halfley says, I'm stuck at work. Well, sorry, sir, that you're stuck at work. I wonder if I had something interesting to play for that. I don't know. I don't know what my other buttons do. Okay, I can't hit the bottom ones because those are the Elon Musk buttons I just created, and that would be inappropriate. Okay, I'm not going to touch my other buttons because I don't remember what they're set up for. Diane says, yes, 1 year out of my ex. 1 year out, my ex is manipulating kids, but I'm consciously not adding stress to his pressure on them. That is the key right there. It's causing stress between them. They are all in college, which he's paying for. Oh, I'm sure that that's turning into a, what do you call it? A manipulation point. Yeah, I think sometimes it's really weird. It's like the best, The best thing I think we can do is try to create a calm, safe environment for our kids. It's sad because the reality of that is they tend to poke us in the eye. The kids tend to poke us in the eye more because we're safer, in my opinion. They feel like they don't have to be on edge as much with us as they do with the other parent. And common sense, you would think, and I know we've discussed this in the past, you would think that the kids would be like, wow, I would rather be at this place because I don't have to worry about the drama. I can just relax. I can just be me. And it's like, because love is conditional at the other place, it's like they gravitate towards that because they are so desperate to get what they need / want / deserve from the other parent and are unable to, that they neglect the situation that would probably be in their best interest. But I don't know, do not know how to fix that one. So if anyone has any ideas, let me know. Although with 18, 20, let's see, let me go up. So 18, 22, and 24, I'm pretty much, I think I missed my window of changing tactics, so to speak. April says to John, hope you're getting paid double time. Outstanding. Hopefully you are, sir. God, hopefully it's not your normal shift. You must be, I'm trying to think what all would actually be open. I guess there is some stuff open today. Fortunately, I have the day off. I was going to take tomorrow off, but apparently I don't really have a reason to, so I guess I won't. Linda says, to be fair, when they are young adults striking out, they are likely to be the most absent regardless of the circumstances. Yeah, that's true. I kind of expected that. I didn't kind of expect them all to go move in full time with mommy. But hey, I did the best I could. Anyways, Double X says, Merry Christmas. I have not been in a while. Nice to see you. Hope everyone is doing well. Well, hopefully you are doing well too, Double X. I would say, sir, but I'm not sure. So I'm just hoping you're doing well. Oh, see, all you guys are changing names. Did you see it says, I used to be committed to the shift. It was tough. Man, that is a name from the past as well. You guys used to, back in the day, I remember that people would change their names a lot, and it was confusing to try to keep track of it. Oh, I will say this, but this is a good segue to say, if you are in the early stages of this, it probably would be beneficial to create another YouTube account with an anonymous name so that your ex and their surrogates are not stalking your comments and your traffic or whatever. I haven't really had to talk about that in a while, but I think that's something that people should be cautious of. Diane says, his behavior is causing my kids to fight with each other. Oh, geez. Oh, I remember those days. That's rough. And it took me a while to kind of, they still fight with each other. And that was the other thing that's crazy. It's like, I would hear from the kids about how they're beating each other up verbally, mainly at the other house. And then they come over here and they don't really do it. And I'm like, what the hell? It's like, why? Again, it's another one of those things where it's like you don't have to be in that chaos. Oh, Ruben says she's 13. Oh, crap, dude. All right, so I misread that. Well, sorry to hear that, sir. I'm assuming, so if that's the case and she's moving out of state, so I'm assuming that means you get holidays and summers, so you still get your 20 to 30% time. That's going to be rough because then it's going to, if the other parent is not supportive of it, they are going to make it as difficult as possible. I'm trying to remember where you said how far. Let me see if I can find your comment, Ruben. Oh, it might help if I spell your name correctly in the search bar. Moving out of state, and it just seems like, okay, so, yeah, you didn't say where. You go on to say, my sons are really scared to go against her, so we're not in the best terms, but they're older, but I just accept that I have to be okay with it. Yeah, you know, man, that's so tough. You know, boys have a tendency to get into this, they have to protect their mom mode, and they kind of go down with the ship. Even if they inherently know that it's a train wreck, they will, I mean, I did that. I mean, they will basically gravitate and feel like an obligation through parentification to be the savior, excuse me, of that one parent. Sorry to hear that, Ruben. Hopefully you can maintain a decent relationship and communication with the kids. The hard part is once they move out of state, it's going to be virtual. And, you know, if they're afraid of the other parent, or they're afraid in your situation, they're afraid of their mom, then it's going to be really tough. Now, as they get older, it's a little bit easier because then when they're texting, they're also texting their friends. So it's easier to be, you know, whenever mom's like, oh, who are you texting? You know? So, and it could be, you know, oh, I'm Billy, not dad. Again, that's a prime example of what I was just talking about how the kids stay in these environments. I mean, it's so ass backwards, because the reality is if our kids would say, you know what? No, I'm not playing this game. Knock it off. Stop doing that. You know, I want to see my other parent, and this isn't happening, but that's not what happens. They're like starving animals searching for any breadcrumb that other parent will give them, you know, while have a whole, you know, I don't know, I'm using the food analogy, you know, a big spread of quality food, deliciously prepared. And it makes you feel like you're beating your head against the wall. But we still have a tremendous opportunity to instill in the kids that chaos, you don't have to go out and create chaos in your future life. Now, I'll tell you, if in my situation, my kids do that and I'm still doing this channel, I will report back on that and we will try to figure a alternative path to prevent that from happening. I would be really bummed on that, though, to be perfectly honest, to go through all this time and pain and not achieve at least that. I think I've made some successes with my kids on that. At least the older two. No, maybe even the younger one. Actually, I think all of them. You know, instead of having this, everything has to be a knockdown, drag out. If you have a relationship and it goes south, it has to be, you know, you have to be a victim and the person has to be a horrible human that you can never talk to again. It's like, you know, if I remember having a conversation with my middle daughter when she was with this young gentleman and it was not going well. And I'm like, well, do you see yourself with this person in 5 to 10 years? No, they were completely different. I'm like, okay. You don't have to get to the situation where something happens that you have to hate this person. There's no reason why you can't say, you know what? Hey, you're a great dude, you know, but you're going left, I'm going right. And it's not, you know, it's not healthy for us to continue, and that's okay. And she did that. And, you know, it was very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? It was, not casual, but I mean, and it wasn't necessarily easy, but I mean, it didn't have to turn into a complete crap show. I think I got a super chat. I did. James F. gave me a super chat and says, Merry Christmas. I used to stress about seeing daughter on Christmas Day, but I've finally made peace with it being more important to see her. Try to make peace with the situation. It takes Narc's ability to F with you away. That is so true, sir. And thank you for the super chat. Yeah, it's so, you know, it's weird because the answers for most of our in these situations, the answers typically are very simple. It's like not complicated, but it is so complicated and frustrating to finally accept it. I personally had a lot of struggles with that, and it just didn't make sense. But once you realize that, it's a game changer. It really is. Thank you, James, for that. I really do appreciate it. Now I have to figure out where I was because I hit the wrong button. Okay, I read that one. If you guys, anyone has a specific question, just tag me at DSD and put question or cues or something so that I know you're trying to get my attention, and I will address that. Did you see it? It says, it does get better. You teach people how to treat you. And that can also be with your kids. Because I know in the early days, it felt like the ex was still in my house. You know, it's like, what in the world? And it took time to deprogram the kids, at least over here, that we're not going to do that. That's not happening. We didn't go through this nightmare to just continue it. So it's funny that I can laugh about it now. It was, all these stories I'm bringing up and thinking about, they were incredibly painful and stressful and draining. I hope that's an example that you can take your life back with this. Ted says, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, sir. Ted all goes on to say, Duane, my 14-year-old daughter is throwing a tantrum about her Christmas wish list. That's a tough one. That would take a lot more time to discuss. So sorry you're dealing with that, Ted. I would just say try to enjoy as much as you can on this day with her. If she's throwing a fit and complaining that you didn't get her what she wanted and stuff, that's got to be, man, that's really disrespectful. Diane says, I was able to spend Eve with them. He just cut that time short. They know, but he pays for college, so they have to placate. Yeah, I mean, I guess if it's, I mean, it still sucks, but when you have a context of what's going on and the I don't know, obligation is the right word, but the specifics of the situation, maybe that makes it easier. I don't know. You have to let me know, Diane, if it does. I mean, context obviously does help. Let's see. Okay, I already read that one. Nothing much. Whoops. Nothing much says hello. Hello to you. Nothing much. Hopefully you're having a great day. Dan Ski, another blast from the past. Merry Christmas, Duane and group. To all those parents alone today, including myself. Tomorrow we'll be here to celebrate Christmas. Please take care of yourself today. This channel will be the best. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Yep. Debbie should be coming over later today, and we shall hang out and watch. I think we're going to watch that new Ryan Reynolds, Will Ferrell movie. Will Ferrell? Yeah, that's right. Actually, when my youngest was over yesterday and we were looking at different video clips, they said, that's a pretty good show. And I'm like, oh, the image looks stupid and I didn't want to watch it. So I watched the trailer and I'm like, oh, just so you know, if you have, I think it's on Apple TV. If you have it, it's basically a remake of Christmas Story, the Scrooge type thing. The Christmas past, future, and present, ghosts and stuff like that. It looks funny. I heard it was a musical, so hopefully it's decent. That sounds like a good Christmassy thing to watch. Ted says, Duane, no parent or child deserves this. That is true. We did nothing to deserve this BS. I know. Well, the only thing we did, we picked the wrong person, buddy. My dad did. I did. And, and the really sad part about this Sorry about that. I didn't mean to leave you in suspense. The really sad part about this is most of the time when we're we pick it, we recognize it, but we stay, and it's actually really, to me, it's really scary because you're basically putting yourself in harm's way with your defenses and shields completely down. You are completely vulnerable to the other person, and you don't understand it until they basically, stab you in the side. And then you're like, what the hell happened? And then you're already damaged. And by the time you try to put your shields up, you've already been basically ambushed. Thanks, Linda. Says, why is there only one like? And you know what? I know that since I just read that, and I don't know if I'll be able to see that. I'll get a downvote. I always do. But thank you, Linda, for reminding everybody to hit that like button to help YouTube push this thing out. So, Diane says, spending time with the rest of the family. Well, good for you. Nothing much says that's the first step to acceptance. See, and that's where I get into a little bit of a bind, because whenever I am reading through this, then whenever I get to a comment to something else that was said, it makes it, it's like, what part were you talking about? John says to Ruben, I'm in the same boat with my oldest son. Wants nothing to do with me. Keep trying and remind him that you love him. Yeah, I think that's the key, is you got to keep the door open. And man, I know how rough it is, because there's been, it's weird. Through this whole experience, I can look at what some of the things my dad did, and it all makes sense now. At the time, it didn't. So, I mean, unless the kids do something really egregious to you, you got to keep the door open, because that at least facilitates things changing later. But it's hard, because when they're basically jabbing you in the eye or completely ignoring you for an extended period of time, then if they do reach out, you kind of have that built up anger and frustration, which is why I'll go back to what I was saying a moment ago. It is really important that you heal from this and you work through it and you have understanding. You cannot just put it in a box and ignore it, because what will happen if you do that is when they do reach out to you, all that pent up frustration and anger is going to bubble right back up to the same intensity, if not greater than it was before. If you deal with it, then you're in a much better mental and emotional headspace to be able to effectively communicate with them. And I'll tell you just right off the bat, if when they reach out, you lash out to them, it will not bode well. So, and that's kind of the problem I had with my own father, which is why I've tried through the entire process, once I realized I was living his nightmare, to take the actions that happened when I was a little child and even early adult, my interactions with him, and like, okay, what could he have done differently that would have resonated and connected with me when I was 10, 15, 17, down that road. And that's pretty much how I've approached my own kids. And I didn't hit the button fast enough, so I apologize for that sniffle. Nothing much says, knowing it's not your fault is better than blaming yourself. Yeah, it's tough. The thing I'll add on to that, nothing much, is I know, and I've seen a lot of people do this. Actually, I did this as well. Be careful of turning that into, well, I did this because I married this person. I mean, okay, there's a part of that that's true, but you can't just keep driving yourself into the ground. And I think sometimes we get so acclimated to chaos and stress and anxiety and all of those wonderful emotions that we just have to do that for a while. It's hard to find peace. It's difficult to get to a point where you can embrace that, let it into your life, and not panic with it. That is also something that typically people in our situation struggle with. When you've had a lifetime of chaos, gaslighting, cognitive dissonance, all that stuff, it just really complicates things. And to purge yourself from it is not easy. I had a hard time with that. It freaked me out when things finally got calm and it's like, wow, this is kind of crazy, and you start looking for problems. Now, don't get me wrong. When you finally make your peace with it and your ex typically realizes, oh crap, hold on. Oh crap, they're getting away. They'll go take their finger and go boop right in your eye and just kind of reset that. That was way too close. Anyways. Diane says, just show them, your kids, your strength and not the vitriol. Yeah, it's really tough too. That's why I said, a lot, you guys have heard me say this before. It's hard, but try to make decisions that are best for your kids. Now, I'm saying this from somebody who struggled with this and didn't do this. For instance, and the example I used the other day was Mother's Day, but since it's Christmas, I will say Christmas. Do something. If the kids are with you, and no one else is helping them get presents for mommy, do that. Hey guys, I'll give you a budget of $5 or whatever. Let's go, let's go get your mom a card or something. And I'm saying that as somebody who I was so angry. I'm like, I am not going to give that piece of crap a freaking penny. And it was like, okay, so what? I punished. The only one who got hurt on that, minus my pocketbook, is the kids. Now, don't get me wrong. I would, like, hey, make your mom a card, and I had, go draw something or do something like that. But I was like, I am not going to spend a cent on her. And I shouldn't have. That was stupid. So let me ask a poll for the hundreds of people, hundreds of people who are on the stream right now. How many are at that mode to where they're like, oh, F that. I am not doing that. And so you can just say, yep, that's me, or yes, and then I'll see where we're at. Because I know I struggled with that for years. It was not an easy thing to get over. Oh, dude. Ted says, Duane, because of poor algebra grades and the behavior I endured, I did not purchase any Christmas gifts for my 14-year-old daughter. That, sir, is a wedge issue that you walked right into. You probably should have done something. Unless you are so financially broke, you really can't do anything. But if you said to her, Pumpkin, you did not get anything because basically your grades suck and you've been an ass, that is just falling right. That is right there a classic wedge issue, double bind, that these people are freaking masters. When I say these people, I don't mean your child. I mean the ex. So sorry, dude, that's going to be a rough one. I think we talked about this. I think I was really encouraging you not to do that, but I understand why you did. But now there's going to be there's a consequences. Now the reality is maybe if things improve, Ted, let me know. I would love to know that, because sometimes I have been incorrect in how I think things are going to play out. Not all the time, but sometimes. So sorry to hear that, Ted. So nothing much. I'm not sure if I understand this. It says, if it's society, that's crazy, so be it. Oh, I don't remember what we were talking about when you said that. So I apologize. Kate made it on, says, hi, DSD. Hope everyone is doing well this day. Hopefully you are doing well as well. So Merry Christmas to you. Oh, paramedic. Okay. John says, it's my normal shift. I'm a paramedic. Yeah, I was hoping that maybe it was something like that. So sorry, sir, that you're working today. Hopefully you are making sweet overtime. And man, I hope that you don't get many calls. That's got to be rough to be in your career field and then on this day get an emergency call for somebody who, may not. Hopefully it's one of those things where you get there and you save the day. But hopefully it's a quiet day for you guys. Kate says, I'm still beside myself with the lack of oversight and law in family court. Criminal law demands things like proof and imposes penalties. Yeah, Kate, I hear you on that. It is, I think most of us walk into, I don't even know why, because I mean, it's like the known secret that family law is a nightmare. But I think all of us think, oh, well, it's court, so I'll get my day in court and justice will prevail. And then we realize, oh my God, what a nightmare. So Diane says, yep, name changer tier 2. You guys are trying to thwart me. T Solo, sir, haven't seen you around. Or maybe you have. It's just every time I see your name pop up, it's like, hey, I remember T Solo. It says, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, T Solo. Did you see it says, I'll be working next Christmas. I work on a mobile crisis response team for a mental health / substance abuse facility. Well, thank you for your support on that, because I know that's got to be rough. So Dansky says, Duane, I think the best name on here was Mayonnaise. I can't remember who that was. That's hilarious. I forgot about that one. Dansky's been around since the early days as well. Kate says, second Christmas in a row without seeing my daughter, and all it takes is ex parte allegations and a court date for 6 months out. They get what they want. Yeah, that's where it's really tough if you're in a very busy jurisdiction, because the court dates are out so far. It's actually kind of interesting because I'm like right on the edge of LA County and another county. And had I filed, and I probably could have filed in, well, maybe I don't know if I could have. Maybe I could have filed in LA County. But anyways, that's what I was told. It was like, well, if you file in the county you're in, you'll get a court date in a month. If you file in another place, it's going to be 4 to 6 months. Yeah, they're masters at manipulating the court systems, Kate. I mean, you're living that, so I'm not, I'm speaking the obvious to you. Hakuna Matata says, hi all, remember to hit the like button and per person something waving. Let's see, what does it say again? It says the emoji is person, turquoise waving. I really wish the software I'm using would actually show it, but it is funny whenever it says what it is too. Ted says there has to be accountability and consequences somehow. Yeah, you can't go full bad cop. That was something I learned early on when something would happen and it would be like, okay, you're grounded. And then I noticed I was basically falling right into the trap. And then I ended up being very selective on what I would do. It's like you ground them for something specific for a reasonable amount of time, but you leave other things open. It's like, okay, you can't play whatever. You can't play Xbox, but we can go to a movie or whatever. I mean, it's kind of weird because it feels weird, but it's like you have to break it out, because if you're all bad cop, you fall right into and I did. Ted, I'm not criticizing you. Say, oh man, how could you make that decision? I've made those decisions. And when I tell you some advice on how to deal with it, I'm not judging you for what you've done or how you've done it. What I'm trying to say is I've done the same thing. It lit me on fire. It hurt my relationship with my kids. And then I had to work doubly hard to undo the damage, if that makes sense. So Diane says, my ex, quote, stirs the pot. He seems to want them at odds with each other. That is such a standard thing. He doesn't get along well with his siblings. Very unhealthy. He seems to feed on that. Of course. Yeah, and it's like mine does the same thing. You know, it's like it's that self-fulfilling prophecy. Very frustrating. Ruben says, I'm trying, but I know it's never going to be the same again. Sir, I understand what you're saying. And I get it, right? I mean, because it's like you're losing time that you can't get back. I mean, I think that's the hardest part with this, is that no matter what happens, right? I mean, if you completely lose custody, I mean, whatever, 100%, you never see the kids again for 10 years, you've lost that time that can never come. Even if the kids come back, you can't get the time back. And then if you get half time, then you're still missing opportunities and experiences. I mean, same thing. I mean, I'm in that 50-50 boat, and there are a bunch of experiences that I wasn't able to do, or that were denied, or turned into a shit show, for lack of a better word. But here's the thing. And this is where it's tough, Ruben, and I know you're dealing with this right now. So I'm going to say this, and it's probably going to, it might actually even be annoying, and I apologize for that. But we all have to make our peace with the situations that happen. Because if we don't, the ex will succeed at effectively corrupting your entire life. And the reality, that's exactly what they want. They want to destroy any chance of happiness, and they would love nothing more than to see you miserable for effectively the rest of your life. And the reality is, we get to make that decision, right? It's not their decision. I mean, they're setting the stage for it, but at the end of the day, it's up to us. And if you are in the mode where you would like to basically, have quote unquote revenge, if they realize that you're moving on and they did not have the desired effect, more than likely, they will do something to try to amp it back up. Because unfortunately, that is a pattern that they all follow. Typically, that's why I would recommend not doing that, because I did that a handful of times and I paid dearly for it. But I also understand, dude, with you basically being erased from your kids, that's tough, man. April says, I think my ex is 10% delusional, probably more than that. He believes his own imagination, probably 92% delusional. Kate says to Ruben, probably right, Ruben, maybe you can manifest something truly unique and wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. Did you see it? Says, yep. Changing my handle was a big deal for me. I no longer feel that description for change. Good point. Excellent point. And that's the interesting part about this process, is that if you work on it, you morph out of it. But the scary reality is, if you stay where you are at, you will stay there until you're ready to move on. I saw that with my own father, where he was so angry. It's like, and now don't get me wrong. It could be that I was a reminder every time I was around him. I was a reminder of what happened. So it brought all that back up. So maybe I was just seeing that part of it. But from my perspective, it seemed like decades had gone by and he was still feeling the pain from, 1979 when all this crap happened. Anyways. Ted says, Duane, the root problem is court-ordered child support, money, and the Title IV 4D part of the Social Security Act. The state gets federal matching funds for child support administration and enforcement. That makes it a very tough situation because a lot of courts want to have child support because of it helps fund things. It's a horrible system. I think that's the reason. Well, see, it's so weird because like even in California, it's moved more towards a 50-50 state. But even with that, I mean, I got 50-50 and I was paying a fucktard amount of money to the ex. Still, I mean, it was horrible before I got 50-50. That was really tough for a period of time. I can't even say this person's name because I don't know how to pronounce it. It says, my ex was blocked. After her discard, she had her friends find me in a narc survivor group. I told the judge it's cyber stalking. How could a random person take screenshots and randomly find my ex? Yeah, and the sad part is in family court, they probably ignored it. So it's frustrating. So Ted says, Duane, the system is legalized racketeering. It is not a great system. And I will say, that system made me gun shy. That's the reason why whenever the Department of Child Support Services for my county was saying, hey, you need to officially ask for a modification on child support, I was like, I don't know if that's a good idea, because I swear to God, it seems like every time I think I understand something, and I mash the button on it, when it finally plays out, it played out differently than what I anticipated. So that and the fact that every time I tried to poke the ex in the eye about changing money, she would do something to the kids. So in my mind, it was like, all right, let's just keep this as stable as possible. Don't stir the hornet's nest. Not because I can't take the hits, but because I can't protect the kids from the hits, if that makes sense. And that was it's so weird because there was a period of time where if I would have had the resources, or if someone would have told me that back when I first, like the first year or two of this, oh dear God, I absolutely would have done it. So Linda says, when the primary caregiver is the cluster B, well, the cluster B has every advantage. They are brought up to program to play their game in order to chase the breadcrumbs. They are brought up to be programmed to play the game. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I was having a hard time stringing those words together. Yes, I would agree with you. And unfortunately, what I've seen as the trend is the kids are desperate for those breadcrumbs. It's crazy. It's really we already talked about it. So I guess this comment was probably from back whenever I was talking about that. Diane says, simply told my ex, quote, I am not the wife for you, period, end. Now, see, the problem is when you're married, I'm assuming you were married and you said that. See, I think that's what you're saying, Diane. And what I will say is I kind of had the same thing, the same epiphany. I'm like, okay, you want something different. I'm not it. I can't live like this anymore. And I, like a moron, I thought that we could be civil and it would just, we could go left and right, but we would co-parent. Oh my God, was I wrong on that? Again, that was like in that stage where I had defenses were down, shields were not up, and, then the frickin' missiles started flying. Fortunately, I got into game mode fast enough to where I could mitigate. I was going to say I mitigate it, but I think the reality is I think the ex, because talking about 12 years ago. I don't know what people think nowadays. It's probably along the same lines that, okay, moms always win, dads always lose. So she went in thinking it was a done deal. It's just, she just had to, get her trophy. So she wasn't anticipating a fight and just assumed she was going to win. So I honestly think if she would have known the outcome, she would have played harder, and I would have then been dealing with the silver bullet type accusations and stuff like that. So, yeah, man, it's scary when you think about, that danger zone when you really don't know what you're dealing with. Nothing Much says, I think we should just accept that some people just like to start problems. Oh, absolutely. Some people live for chaos. You will find them at work. You will find them in family. You might find that in your ex. If you're on this channel, more than likely, there's a 100% chance you will find that in your ex. Ruben says, your channel has been Your channel has really been a great support for me. Thanks for everything and for the comments. Very welcome, sir. Sorry I butchered your comment. It's like I was expecting different words in a different order, but what you wrote fully made sense. My brain just wouldn't process it. But anyways, I'm glad that I can be of some support, because I know that these can be some of the darkest times of our lives. And it does get to the point where you can sit there and go, what, everything has been destroyed. What's the point? What do I do now? And hopefully you're not in that mode. My guess is you're probably close to it. Just give yourself some space and time, because things do get better. And every time I say this, I always have a little bit of a dilemma, because I remember when I was going through this, and if someone said that to me, I'm like, how's it ever going to get better? Everything's been fucking ruined. Everything's destroyed. There is no better. This is horrible. And it is. But I'm here to tell you that I'm an example of somebody who was in that, who was living those dark days, who did not see a pathway through this. And, I've made it through it. And what I don't want you to do is do that yeah, but thing that we all tend to have to do. And that's, with like, well, yeah, Duane, but you got 50-50. So you had, you had that. I'll tell you, sir, 50-50 of dealing constantly with this toxic situation, it's its own personal hell. So there's ways through that. I'll just call you Beta. Beta says, it wasn't random. I went to new users in the group and found one other girl from my hometown, one of her known acolytes. See, that's the, so here's the other thing. A lot of people who are surrounded with and friends with a toxic person, they love chaos too, and they love drama. And as a result, they oftentimes will insert themselves into this just so that they can be a part of and or create drama. It's very annoying. Nothing Much says, you've seen it all your life in the school system. It's just kind of their nature. Well, I think the reality is that, typically people who have a personality disorder, it can just be, there are some evidence and reports that say, oh yeah, it's, it can be inherited. But oftentimes what happens is there's a trauma that happens, and it basically stops this person from maturing at a particular age. It's when that trauma was. So unfortunately what happens is they still physically keep aging, but emotionally they're a 10-year-old. But they're a 10-year-old in a 28-year-old body, or a 35-year-old body. And people look at them like, oh, well, you're a mature, rational adult, and we're going to take what you're saying as legit. Whereas if a 10-year-old was playing the same stupid little game, you would pick them up, throw them over your shoulder, take them to their room, and ground them. Do not do that with your 35-year-old adversary because you will end up in jail. Don't do that. But it's enough to make you, it is enough to drive you crazy. Which actually brings me up, I'm going to bring this, and don't run that one. Emotional dysregulation. This is a slide I have just kind of in my back pocket. When you're in that, basically you've been emotionally dysregulated. You have mood swings, feeling overwhelmed by emotions. I hated when I was dealing with that. Depression. I hate dealing with that. Now, anxiety. My anxiety is not as... I have anxiety right now because I'm dealing with some court shit and stuff like that. So there's some built-in anxiety that's still driving me crazy that way. If I didn't have that, my anxiety has pretty much been resolved. And strong emotional reactions that don't affect others the same way, meaning you get triggered by things. Something will happen and you will have that visceral response where it's throwing you back into a complex post-traumatic stress disorder flashback that doesn't make sense. And you don't even understand why you're having a reaction on something that later you're like, what the hell did I do that for? I haven't had that in a long time. I used to have that. Quite often. Linda says, but with time and consistency, the adult children will see the cluster beast parenting game for what it is. I hope. Yeah, I think they will. And although I think it would be beneficial for kids to accept that and then start to get away. And I think I'm like thinking about it with my kids' situation, because all my kids want to get out and live by themselves, but there's a lot of extra drama that's complicating that. And a lot of extra drama and honestly is what's gravitating the kids over there. College loans and feeling like mommy's, I have to help her out, that type of thing. So that's a strong pull, and a lot of times when you're the stable person, they don't gravitate towards it because it's like, okay, mom, okay, dad, you're good. I don't have to worry about you. It's the other parent that I have to parent. So, trying to see that. So I think Linda, I think I agree with you on this. And I think the kids see it. And the real test is going to be when they extricate themselves from that situation. Are they going to replicate it, unfortunately, like we did, most of us, definitely me, to where, I replicated my home life with a new person, so subconsciously I could prove that I was worthy of love, worthy of being treated not like shit, and to reconcile that. Our hope is that we can break our kids from that, so that when they go and they find another relationship, they know what's healthy, and when things start going south, they don't go, oh well, this is comfortable, and I will stay there for 10 to 20 years. Before I, decide that I can't do this anymore. Let's see. Muddy Mud Skipper. Do you do off-roady stuff, Muddy Mud Skipper? I'm curious. Legalized and governmental and cultural sanctioned destruction of the nuclear family. Simple fact is we, as a culture, cannot stand the idea of dads being involved in the kids' lives. However, Muddy Mud Skipper, I agree with you, but it really does seem that a lot of judges are trying to undo that. For instance, when I went to court 12 years ago, 11 years ago, whatever that time frame was, I was asking for 50-50. I wanted to be in the kids' lives. I wanted to be an active father. And I remember the judge saying, literally, he said in court, something to the effect of, we have a father here who wants to be involved, and we need to encourage that. to the chagrin of the ex and her attorney, who, well, Mr. Duane doesn't care about the kids. He only cares about money. He just wants the kids because of money. I mean, the reality is that because I got 50-50, it saved me $20,000, $1,000 extra a month. And that's still, I was still financially devastated, but had that really been the case, then I would have pawned the kids off to mommy every chance I got. And I wouldn't have been involved on everything. I really took my role as a parent very seriously, to my own detriment in a lot of ways, because mom didn't, in my situation, the mommy did not care. And I was fighting that, and it was brutal. It would have been so much easier if I just checked out. So anyways, James says, you want to fight back, but it's better to try to work around it the best you can. Yeah, that's true. And it's hard to get past that fighting back phase. It's kind of what the whole premise of hybrid no contact is all about. If you go to my main YouTube channel, scroll down to the Mindset for Narcissistic Abuse Recovery. I should change that to like start here. That first video, why hybrid no contact is important, is critical in the first phase of this. These first three, I don't know why I'm pointing at the screen. I'll do my mouse. The first three videos in this one, can I make it? Come on. There we go. That one, that was horrible. And then this one, absolute thinking and black hole thinking, are really important in that first phase of dealing with this. If you have not seen those videos, I would encourage you to go check them out. If you're struggling with it and you haven't seen them for a while, maybe go watch them again. So it's older videos, so they're a little more raw and rough. It's hard to watch some of my old stuff, I guess. Well, it's hard to watch yourself anyways. So, anyways, that's just my thought. Where are we at? We're over an hour. We'll keep going for a little bit. Kate says there's no consequence for the bad behavior and they win our children. That drove me insane, Kate. Why would it be wrong to adapt their strategy, but for a good cause? I think I know what you're saying, and I've often thought that myself. It's like, well, what if I played the same mind games the ex did? See, here's the risk. I actually was talking to a gentleman about this. I actually had a coaching call about this the other day. Very common thought. I even thought the same thing. This is what I think the reality is. And I know you haven't seen your daughter in a long time. So you're kind of it's a more complicated situation. Like if you try to reach out and you use guilt and, I really miss you and, and remember that time when you did that, it blows up in your face. It's not a good approach. But let's say you have some interaction. I think if we push that, I think we seriously risk pushing our kids to substance abuse, self-deletion, other type of problems that our best bet for our kids, if we're in their lives, is to try to provide them an escape from effectively the torture of it. And if we actively try to play that same type of game, we are just going to really, I think, cause damage to the kids. That's my thought on that. I'm curious what you guys think. Okay, I think I missed part of some comments. So let's see. Nothing much says to James. The problem is they're going to be roaming around 2024 even. Maybe I'm not sure what you guys are talking about. Then you go on to say, I want a fresh, clean restart for that year. I don't know how I'll respond. Okay, so I missed something. So, or unless you're just talking about how to re-engage with them. Nothing much. If you can turn that into a question that kind of is standalone, so I understand exactly what you're commenting on, put that in there because I'd like to have some better context for that. And I apologize if it's there and I missed it because it's hard for me to keep track of the comments of the hundreds, the 40s of people that are hanging out with us today. Actually, to be honest, for revamping this show and starting it up, the fact that there's 42 people hanging out right now, that's pretty, I'm happy with that. I mean, don't get me wrong, 400 would be nice, but I'm thank you guys for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Debbie jumped on. Says, Merry Christmas all. It's wonderful to see how many can get together for their holiday peer support this morning. And just so you guys know, it's interrupting what we're going to be doing. So she's, waiting hanging out, waiting in the winds before she heads over. And we start our Christmas extravaganza tamale. Oh crap, what's the next word? Celebration. That's the word I'm looking for. Celebration. Anyways. God, I'm entertaining myself. Okay. All right. It looks like I've missed a ton of comments. It looks like I'm way behind. So I'm trying to figure out where I'm at with this. I apologize for that. Let's see. Linda says, when the cluster B parent is did I already read this one? No, I didn't. When the cluster B parent is the primary caregiver, the child has been conditioned to play their game since birth. Oh, you're rewording it. They are trauma bonded. It sucks, and I pray that all of them wake up. Linda, you are spot on with that. And that's exactly what happens is they're conditioned for it for forever. And man, I so fell into that trap when I was a little kid. The only reason I think my brother really broke free from it is because he was a lot like our dad. And she got mad. Mommy got mad at him one day, yelled at him, basically said, you're just like your dad, and literally dropped him off on his doorstep. Said, here you go. Actually, it's kind of funny. I was talking to my brother. My dad actually didn't really talk much about my mom until later. And sometimes I think that was a mistake, because he was trying, in a lot of ways, what he was trying to do was the advice that I do give out. It's just when you're dealing with Satan, when you're dealing with basically pure evil, it's really hard to play that game. Justice or the right always doesn't prevail, I guess, what I'm trying to say. But anyways, when I was talking to my brother about it, I don't know, a few weeks ago, he was telling me that story. And he was like, yeah, at least dad lost, didn't have to pay child support for me. I'm like, yeah, he did. And he's like, what? I said, he still, he didn't go back and get that adjusted. He still kept paying. And he's like, what? And he's like, man, dad never really told me that. He goes, we didn't talk about it. I said, oh yeah, no, he basically was still paying, didn't go back to court. And in a lot of ways, like when I talked to my dad about it, he's like, yeah, he just, he tried what he could to try to reach me and couldn't. And I felt obligated. It's like, I can't leave mommy. She'll be all by herself. I have to protect her. I can't leave her alone. And what's really frustrating? I was just talking about this with a buddy of mine that for the longest, actually, I was just talking about it to him on the phone earlier today. I used to have a visceral, angry response being around women who cried. And it was because my mom would turn on the waterworks to manipulate me. If things weren't going her way, she would do that and make me feel like complete crap to get what she wanted. So subconsciously, I started to recognize that as a manipulative tactic. And it took me it doesn't bother me now, but there was like in my early 20s, that would irritate me. And it took me a while. I mean, I had to work through that. That was something I had to heal and make my peace with. Let's see. Where are we at? All right. I'm trying to look around the comments. The Johnese, if I'm saying that correctly, says, I appreciate you doing this. This is my first Christmas alone without my kids, doing okay and keeping myself busy. Good for you. That is not easy to do. It's easy to fall in that trap where you're ruminating about it. So I'm good for you. So hopefully you are doing something good. Muddy Mud Skipper says, family court and justice is like oil and water. Very true. That's funny. I like that one. Let's see. Nothing Much says, people like to call them demons and angels. I think we just live amongst humans, delusional ones, if being real. That works too. Are people who just don't have empathy to recognize what they're doing, how much damage they're causing. You know, I mean, I know I've said this in the past, but the crazy reality of this is that it would take so much less effort to not have this be a complete shit show. But these people enjoy that, must maintain see, it's crazy. They got to maintain the victim status. It's like, why can't, I mean, and we know the reason why, because they're disordered people. But you would think that, you know, why can't you turn around and say, I was the victim, but I've risen above it and I've done all these things. And, you know, and it's like, the fear is if the other person turned into the good parent that you wanted them to be, you can't have that because you can't acknowledge that. So you, excuse me. So you have to maintain this illusion / story that, that they're horrible. You know, and it's just crazy because it doesn't have to be that way. So hold on, I'm trying to check. Oh, that was just the text notification. It's just frustrating because it doesn't have to be this way. And the sad part out is, even if you're like, you know what, I'm just going to pretend it's okay, I'm going to let it go. The problem is these people need chaos. And if you let your guard down, they will create more chaos. At least that's been my experience personally. And that's been my experience working with hundreds of people, probably thousands of people over the last 7 years on this channel, to where it just doesn't work. I remember way back when in the early days, we had somebody who was actively trying to, like, you know, be extra nice and feed in. It's like, okay, I understand what narcissistic supply is. I'm going to try to, you know, since I understand what I'm dealing with, I'm going to see if I can play to that. And the guy did it for a few, maybe months, and then everything went to crap. And he's like, this, you know, it's the problem is you put yourself at too much risk. You know, you're basically defenseless, shields down. Well, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. You know, Star Trek, you know, your shields are down and you're a bunch, you know, around a bunch of Romulans. I don't know if I'm using the right. Anyways, and just hoping that they're not going to, you know, torpedo you. Anyways. Yeah. I'm gonna not hit that one. All right. Where are we at? Mud Skipper. You know, sir, I'm going to just probably keep picking your name because your name makes me laugh. As Duane says, probably not good idea to go full, quote unquote, full bad cop. It's not about fault, but attempting to salvage relationship with the kiddos where you can. Yeah, it's tough. Man, it's easy to say these things, but I understand how hard it is to put it in practice. You know, and for me, whenever I started switching this, and this is where like the core of the whole Groundhog Day videos came from, was kind of on this. And I also remember, like, before I, you know, got estranged with my mom, she was absolutely, you know, when those kids come over, you should, you know, you got to put your foot down. They can't do this and they can't do that. And I'm like, I've tried what you're saying and it's lighting everything on fire. If I continue with this, it's not going to help. Now, to be honest, looking at it now and realizing that my mom was actually playing me and my ex against each other, maybe that was actually because she was trying to light everything on fire, you know, because she loves chaos herself. So it was hard. I mean, it was hard for me to take a different approach to implement that Groundhog Day strategy, to recognize wedge issues and what the ex was really trying to do, and then not fall. I mean, that's like when I used to talk a lot about double binds, that's what it is. It's like you like, this is a perfect example of a double bind, because every decision is bad. You can be full bad cop and it's not going to go well. You can ignore it and you're technically reinforcing it, which isn't going to go well. So it's like, how do you find the best balance for your specific situation to where you do the best thing for you to try to move the needle forward? And I mean, this is to Ted, basically. If you are doing this, excuse me, you know, and it's like, okay, I've tried other things and it hasn't worked, so I'm trying this, then okay. You know, my experience is that it doesn't necessarily work well, but I have seen some people put some hard boundaries down and it has paid dividends over time. It's just time is going to tell. So it's, you know, that's the hard part about this, is there's multiple answers to every scenario. And very typically, there's not generally one right answer. It's hard. It's very hard. So Ted says to Muddy and Linda, I have PTSD from the family court experience. You probably also have CPTS, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. The short version difference of that, PTSD is direct action and, you know, memory of a past experience, right? Like reliving being in court and having the judge yell at you or whatever. CPTSD is whenever you're having a reaction and you don't know what caused it, right? You know, like let's say your daughter does something and you have a reaction and you're like, why? You know, you're like, okay, well, am I reacting to what she's doing, or am I reacting to what my ex did? And oftentimes what happens is like you're reacting to something even before that, but you don't know. That's what CPTSD is our complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Is very insidious because it's hard to find the origin of it. Like, for instance, using that example I was talking about before about, you know, seeing a woman cry. I did not understand. I'm like, I mean, at the time, visceral response, I would get angry and respond, you know, in that way. And then as time went on, I'm like, who the hell responds like that? You know, where the hell does that come from? And it took me working through the past to realize, oh, I grew up where that was used as a manipulation tactic. So Debbie says to Ted, sometimes it takes more than one try in order to see certain patterns. Please be kind to yourself. I imagine you've been learning a lot. so much so that you'll be able to help others as well. Yeah, typically we do. We get into a situation where after this, we can be a guiding light for people who are going through this. Ted says, I'm a recovering nice guy. See, and I think a lot of us probably fall into that category. And I think it's because we feel like, well, if we're nice, people will respond. It's so weird, right? Because, I mean, I used to do the same thing. It's like, well, if I do this, if someone did that to me, then the response would be, this. So I'm thinking that if I be nice to somebody, someone else is going to respect it, appreciate it, whatever. Loyalty, that whole thing. And it's hard to realize or recognize that a lot of times we're dealing with people who do not process things the same way. I used to think, well, if I am a good, stable, providing husband, I will have a loyal, dedicated wife who's grateful for this. And the reality is, unfortunately, I think what we've seen, and there's a lot of documentation and channels and videos about this, that if you fall in that category, what ends up happening is your partner typically doesn't have any respect for you, and it actually undermines the relationship. It does the exact opposite of what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, and then you're just beating, like for me, you're beating your head against the wall for 2 decades, trying to achieve this fantasy in your head that just isn't ever going to happen. Curious if anyone agree with that. All right. Oh, geez. Mud Skipper says, I spent 9 to 10 years in family court fighting very hard to gain joint legal custody and 50-50 parenting time with my kiddos. Finally just achieved a few months ago. Hold on. You know what? I'm playing that, and I would imagine, like you said, victory can be bittersweet. And I'm sure it is. It's like one of those things where you're like, you finally won what you were trying to do 10 years later, and I don't know how old your kids are. I mean, maybe if they were babies at the time, they're 10, 10 or 11 years old now. But yeah, I mean, it's like, this kind of goes back with a video I made the other day where victory doesn't feel like a victory. It's like you won, you finally got what you wanted, but you probably feel like you lost your arm and leg going through it. And you're like, what the, was this even worth it? But congratulations to you, sir. Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm trying to read and try to find the next comment. Hey, Pepe D Nuts. He's been around. Pepe's been around forever. So I know the name has a connotation, but it's an OG. And you did a boop. So thank you so much, sir. Oh, you're a channel member. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. Hopefully you're doing well. I know the last time you popped in, things were not going so well. So hopefully they are. Anyways. All right, I'm trying to skim through the comments. We are over an hour and a half. Hour and a half. Remember, you guys, if you got something specifically you want me to address, tag me and ask the question, and I will attempt to find it before we wrap this up. Keith says, I have done a lot of inner clearing, and it's been a game changer in how certain souls relate to me, and major shifts really do happen. Thank you. You know what? That's worthy of. So yes, shifts happen in the real that makes a real difference. Keith, and what you're talking about, I mean, I know that is so, I'm glad you're saying that, because I know it's so hard for people who, when they're going through this, it just feels like, I mean, I can remember back in the beginning part of this, it's like, there's no way this is going to change. The only way this, in my mind, I was like, the only way this is going to get better is if the X gets exposed and crushed, just crushed. Then it'll get better. Well, I'm here to tell you that did not happen, but it got better because I let go of that. I finally was able to come to terms with, if I don't live for, or if I don't continue to live for her destruction effectively, that I don't see a pathway to creating it, it is going to destroy me. And when you start doing that and you start doing that shift, it makes a huge difference and you take your life back. You really do. All right. I'm trying to read some of these comments to figure it out. Oh, Ted, I can relate to this. I am tired of being an ATM machine. I am not an ATM machine. I am not weak. Not weak. I don't know why you would think. Anyways, first part of that, absolutely. I had the same thing, Bank of Dad. I got really sick of that. But I never thought about it as being weak. I was irritated by it. And I did tell the kids at one point, I am not an ATM and you're not going to just, acknowledge my presence whenever you want something. That happened with one of my kids early on in this process, complete ignoring, no replying to text, no, when they would go over to their moms, it was like freaking might as well have been on another dimension. And then I got a, text, hey Dad, I'm like, oh wow, holy crap, this is kind of weird. I'm like, hey, what's up? Can you buy me this? I'm like, no. I'm like, you are not going to ignore me. And the only time you reach out to me is whenever you want something. So, unfortunately, I mean, that's a double bind, but fortunately, when I did that, it actually established a boundary and stopped that behavior. So, but yeah, I can relate to feeling like a bank. It was very annoying. Father X, how fathers can win custody. Hey, glad you could jump on today. He says, Merry Christmas, everybody. DSD, thanks for doing an Xmas live stream today. Well, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it, man. Let's see. Muddy Mud Skipper says, it sounds trite and cliche, but keep your head down and keep the faith and keep doing the right thing because it will work out for the best in the end. I know that sounds like BS, la, 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 but it's real. It really is. And it was hard. I mean, that was one of those things that was really hard to, especially in the beginning, because I wasn't seeing results. So it was hard to do that and feel like you're constantly taking punches to the face. So thanks for saying that, Muddy Mud Skipper. I'm thinking, you may have already said it, but I'm thinking Muddy Mud Skipper is probably somebody who's changed their name. So if you are completely new, let me know, Muddy Mud Skipper. And if you did answer me about if you do off-roading stuff, I missed that. So tag me at DSD. I know the tagging thing on mobile doesn't work. You have to be on a computer to tag. So oh, this is good. Keith says, I like hanging with the Dalai Lama. You want drama? Call Jerry Springer. I choose peace often. Oh, God. I love peace now. Drama I am so done with drama. I have a very short tolerance for drama, and I just start tuning it out. And it's like, all right, just cut to the chase. What are you trying to tell me? And let's move on. I guess technically I haven't done that with my kids yet, but I've done that. I have started to do that with people. Ooh, I see something about EMDR, so I'm going to read this one. Shane says, this has literally been the worst year for me since the divorce ended 6 years ago. Thanks to a great therapist and EMDR therapy, I would be a real disaster. Well, I'm glad to hear that EMDR is really working out for you. And I got to look up because I always forget might help if I spell it right. EMDR. I always forget where is it at? It's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Whoa, I hit the wrong button. No. No, not that one. Sorry. Eye movement desensitization. Gosh darn it. EMDR means eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy is a mental health treatment technique. And I actually tried that in the beginning part, or in the really, really bad areas for me. Shane, I'm glad to hear that worked for you, because when I was doing therapy, when my therapist did that, one, I was really excited about it because I read so much about it. I'm like, oh man, this is going to be the holy grail. And the reality is, I wonder if I can make this bigger. The reality is, it was too much for me. So when I tried to do that, it was overwhelming, and we ended up doing different techniques, different modalities. But I am still a big proponent of EMDR, and I think it can have a lot, are very beneficial, especially for our stuff. I've heard a lot of people who've been able to go through it have said that it has been very helpful for them. So if you are really struggling with this, or you've had it down, actually, it's kind of interesting. Let me see if I can pull Shane's comment back up. I had a very similar thing. It wasn't in the 6-year range, but like the couple year range. I mean, it was like after Debbie and I started dating, I had a crash, and it got really bad. I mean, it was really starting to spiral out of control to the point I was going to therapy once a week, and it just felt like things weren't, it felt like the airplane was going straight into the ground and there was no way to pull up. And fortunately, I had a really good, I guess I can go back full screen. I had a really good trauma therapist who when I picked her, someone else recommended her, but I didn't know what her skill set was. And it wasn't until later, looking at her pamphlets, I'm like, oh, wow, you're a trauma-based therapist. And it was just like divine intervention that she ended up. And actually, the crazy part is that person was supposed to be the co-parenting counselor that the ex and I were supposed to use. But what happened is I found it, even though she was recommended by our kids' therapist, I set it up. I had the first meeting to do all the paperwork, right? Because the first, you have to fill out all the damn paperwork and everything. And the ex was like, nope, I'm not going to, you pick them. I'm not going to talk to them. So I'm like, well, crap. So I actually said to the person, I'm like, well, I need a new therapist that's actually on my insurance, because the last one I had wasn't. And I'm like, so since she won't come, can you just be my therapist? And again, I was like, I didn't realize who I was picking. I mean, it could have been it could have been the wrong person, but it turned out to be very helpful. So anyways, Shane says, no matter what my ex does, my children never acknowledge the disaster that is their mother. She has them both under her narc spell. Sir, I'm living that right now. The difference is my kids will actually tell me some of the stuff that's going on. And then it's like they just, it's like they come out and then they put the blinders back down and they walk right back into it. Linda says, yes, DSD, are they going to break away from it or replicate it? That is both my biggest hope and my biggest worry. See, I hear you on that. And that's the same thing, right? I know we were talking about that earlier. What I will say is I think that without our influence, it wouldn't be one or the other. It would be, they're going to replicate it. If they don't have a pathway out of this, they're going to replicate it. And if they grew up around it, then they fall into that category like I fell into, to where when you start recognizing that you're having a problem, you double and triple down into the fantasy, and 20 years goes by before you finally realize you need to get out. Let's see. Eliza says, Merry Christmas and a narc-free life, everyone. Absolutely. You know what? I'm going to just hit that to that because I concur with that. Let's purge these people out of our lives, take our lives back, and purge them out of it. Much easier said than done. It takes a lot of work. It takes a ton of work. Shaku Jasin, if I'm saying that right, says, hi, DSD, and a hand pink waving. Thank you, sir. I love those little emojis. Shane says, DSD, looking back, I should have fought for primary custody instead of 50-50, and my ex would have had Wednesday night and every other weekend, or what I like to call douchey dad visitation. Yeah, the problem is nowadays, it's really hard to get primary custody. I mean, I agree with you because I think I should have done the same thing. The problem is I just didn't see a pathway to it. I think in my situation, I mean, even if I knew exactly everything I knew right now and I went back, I don't know that the ex would have done enough to actually move the needle to where a court would have said, yeah, you probably shouldn't have 50-50 custody. Because the reality is that, family court, when they make those decisions, basically it's the worst of the worst. And it's like, okay, they make excuses for it. It's like, well, everyone's got problems. So it's really tough. So Shane, do you think it would have actually worked? Do you think you could have accomplished it? Or do you think it would have been a tough sell? Let's see. So Shane had said to Ted, thanks for that. I have 50-50 custody, but that's just what I jokingly call that visitation. Oh, and they absolutely, mine did the same thing. It's like, even though it was 50-50, it's like, well, you're just visiting. You don't live there. You live here. It's criminal for a father who is so important to have that title. I'm sorry, that little amount of contact with, I'm assuming you're saying your kids. Let's see. Just looking down, trying to catch some of the comments. David Lewis says, second time in court, no safeguarding issues. All his accusations failed. All the accusations failed. She still wants to have court order changed to leave me 2 days a month. I don't mean to laugh, but it's like, it's fucking amazing. Sorry. I apologize. It's freaking amazing how these people, they all do the same thing. I was just working with a guy, the same thing. He's had 50-50 or almost 50-50 custody for years. And when they were going towards trial, she's like, supervised visitation every other weekend, I mean, and it's like, really? And I mean, the guy was freaked out. I'm like, dude, calm down. You've had 50-50, effectively 50-50 for a year now. And she's played all these games to try to, get your, ex parte and try to make an emergency motion, and none of it's worked. I'm like, it's never going to happen unless you colossally screw up. It's not going to happen. But the reality is, it still stresses you out. I'm sure David, I'll bring his comment back up. I'm sure when David got the notification that he was being drugged back to court with false allegations to change custody, it freaks you out, because it's like, well, what if it does happen? What if? And the reality is, I mean, the biggest danger in my mind on that is if your kids are parroting those words saying, I'm scared, I don't want to be at mommy or daddy's anymore, then you have a problem. Most of the time, the kids are stuck in the middle, and all they want is equal time. And that's kind of what the guy I was working with, that's the same thing. I mean, his ex was playing hard to try to alienate his child from him, and it didn't work. So, anyways. Father X, how fathers can win custody, says your double bind comment is right on. And when option 1, 2, and 3 all end up bad, then you have to change the game and find options 4 and 5. It's annoying. Yeah, it is. But you have to live life on your own terms. And you have to make the best decisions that you can. But you also have to have the awareness to where you can look at the decisions and then decide whether you need to try something different. So hopefully, I guess what I'm trying to say is, though I have a ton of experience on this, and if I was in your shoes at the, with my knowledge that I have today, there are decisions that I would make. There are decisions I would recommend that you make. But the reality is that roll the clock back to where I was at your position without that experience, I would have a hard time making that same decision. So when you make a decision, when you're stuck in the double bind and you make a choice, evaluate it and say, okay, did that move the needle? Was that decision helpful to get to my overall goal? It's where I use a lot of times I use the analogy of battles and wars. Is this battle you're fighting, is it helping to win the war, or is it making it to where you're going to lose it? And the war being is like, what is your ultimate outcome on this? I think most of us with our children, it's to have a meaningful, lasting relationship with them. So, and I mean, even if it isn't that, if it's like, okay, I just want peace. Okay, well, how do you make decisions to achieve that goal? And are the decisions you're making is it helping or not? You have to let me know if that makes sense to you. Woozateller. I'll just call you Woos like I normally do. You said, just catching you, man. Glad to see you on. Glad that you're able to join us, sir. I missed something from Mud Skipper. What did Mud Skipper say that? Oh, darn the luck. I don't know where it's at. Because I see that now I'm all over the place. Shane had said to Mud Skipper, well done, Mud Skipper. Keep your guard up. Gosh darn it. I don't know what that's conversation between them, and I don't know what happened. Woos says, my first Christmas all by myself, a bit rough. Yeah, you know what, sir? You need to go do something for you. I don't know if that's go see some other people, go to a nice cabin by a river, or not a river, a lake. Well, I guess you could have a cabin by a river, and just do something to find your own peace and give yourself some a moment to just relax. Sometimes that's really tough, though. Father X says to David, my judge never read my petition either. My strategy was to testify extensively about reality and treating my judge like a 10-year-old who didn't understand anything. It worked for me. Yeah, man, they typically don't look at a lot of the paperwork that you put in. Glad you're able to actually get some stuff on the record, Father X, because a lot of times that doesn't happen either. So... I just see Jukelman says to Debbie, I'm a friend of the late Angie Atkinson's community. You know what's weird? I just, in one of my feeds, I don't know if they reposted it or if it was a new video or if it was just an old one, but some of her content popped up. So she used to run queenbeing.com. I think her YouTube channel was Angie Atkinson. And her channel exploded a few years back, but she passed away a couple of years ago. It was really depressing. Actually, I think it happened around the holidays too, now that I think about it. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh, there you go. April says, okay, DSD, we love you and thank you for your spending our time with us. Time to go and get those tamales with your woman. I thought you were saying initially when I saw that, I thought you were going to make tamales, and it's funny because Debbie has a coworker who makes tamales, and because of all the weirdness going on this year, we completely forgot about it. But so she had to secure tamales from an alternate source, and we are hopeful that they will hit the mark. I thought you were going to say that you had to go to make tamales. That's so funny. Excuse me. Almost 2 hours. Holy cow. All right. I guess we could do another 10 minutes and then I'll wrap it up. Let's see. Woos, it says Xmas equals I've always been in illusion mode. They've always sucked, but never thought about it. I just miss my boy. Yeah, it's rough, man. So hang in there, buddy. Wow. Illuminating Manuscript says my finances improved so quickly and significantly post-Narc, it was almost unbelievable. Wow, that's good for you. That did not happen for me. I was pretty much stuck in the meat grinder. You know what? I think probably, maybe that was the way the universe was testing me, right? Because if I would have somehow, if the money wouldn't have been that big of a deal and I could have just skipped along and there wasn't a pain point that was a constant daily reminder, and for the first few years, it was a daily reminder of how bad things were and how much I had built up and lost and how I wasn't able to do a lot of the things I wanted to do for my kids. I probably wouldn't have had the personal and emotional growth that this scenario forced me to do. But honestly, Illuminating Manuscripts, I am happy for you because, not that money solves everything, but just not having that constant stress, paycheck to paycheck, knowing that, not knowing is not the right word, but wondering how you're going to make ends meet is not a fun way to live. And I had to live like that for about, 6 years? And for me, every time it seemed like when I get to that milestone where, okay, a kid drops off, some extra bill would come up to eat it up. I don't remember what the first one, I think the first one with my son, it was such effectively a low amount that it just got absorbed in the noise floor. And then with my second kid, my rent went up. It's like, $600 in child support, $650 dropped off, but my rent went up like $400 or $500 a month. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? It's like every time I turned around, I was just getting kicked in the head. So anyways. All right. So looking around at where we are, what is, oh, sometimes people were doing the acronyms. Sometimes the acronyms mess me up. Ted had said GITSY again. It's like, someone asked, what's GITSY? It's like, good to see you. I'm like, I didn't know what that meant either. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? I have to admit, there are often times when someone will put something out, or my kids will say something to me, I have to go look it up in the Urban Dictionary to figure out what in the world the acronym means. It's pretty funny. Where are we at? Ooh, we're 1 hour, 53 minutes. Muddy Mud Skipper says DSD. Thank you for the shout. Yes, I have visited your channel several times previously under different names. I figured, but it's been a few years. Good to see your channel active and doing well. Thank you. Actually, it just basically, I hit the reset button not the reset, but I'm basically trying to revamp it. All my kids are adults now. I have more time. I am dealing with some court drama, which I've talked about in other things. But this is the time I've been waiting for to jump back into and see if I can do a shift on this channel. So hopefully it will go well. Shane says, DSD, yes, you have to be really, wait a minute. Yes, you have to be ready. Mentally, it can trigger trauma if you don't have appropriate coping skills. You can have vivid dreams. I actually welcomed it. It's very healing. Well, good for you, man. I used to have, God, when I was married, I would have these like running gun battle dreams where I was being chased, where I was running out of ammo. I mean, it was weird. And then it's like, once I got out of it, I very rarely have those type of, that was like constantly, I was like every night I was having these nightmares basically. I think it was my subconscious saying, get out, run for the hills, eject, eject, eject. Anyways, it was a very rough time. Very rough time. Let's see. Shane says, DSD, if I would have took my ex to trial, I think I might have won custody. It probably would have been an additional $30,000, which I didn't have. Yeah, it's rough, man. It's, but I mean, you can only do what you can do. So, and it's also, your kids have to be on board with it. I mean, I know for me, in my situation, I was like, the kids weren't begging me, to protect them from mommy. And I'm like, man, if I really push this and I won this, I'm going to have a nightmare on my hand with the kids. I mean, technically, I guess I still did, but I think it just would have been different. I don't know. Would have liked to have had the opportunity, maybe in one of those alternate universes, there's a path playing out where that did happen. Maybe it happened for all of us. We're just not on that plane. Plane? Dimension? I don't know. It's too much into the verses. All right. Where are we at? Ted says, Duane, if we as men do not set limits, and then what are we teaching our children about us and normal, healthy relationships? I agree with you, Ted. And it's a tough one, right? I mean, it's one of those things where it's like balancing that good cop, bad cop thing. And I struggled with that myself. There were things that I let go because I knew if I 100%ed everything, all I would have accomplished is I would have pushed the kids to actually start saying out loud that they didn't want to be anywhere near me and wanted to be with mommy. I mean, I had my youngest at one point, I want to do homework with mommy. It's so much nicer with her. Yeah, because she would never make her do it, right? And I was trying to make sure that she didn't fail. But it's a tough one, man. None of this crap is easy. That is for sure. All right, where are we at? Scrolling down. Duane, how do you handle if the children are sending insulting text messages? I would ignore them. Don't respond to them. It's picking, because think about it. They're sending the text messages. I mean, unless they're in your house, but if they're with the other parent, they're more than likely being egged on, and it's a wedge issue. You're being provoked and they're trying to see if they can get you to respond. Don't respond. Ignore it. But it's hard. It's hard. Hard. Very hard. Scrolling down. Where are we at? Oh, I think I've hit my live stream limit. My back's starting to seize up. Key says, yes, DSD, because you and others are no longer in that toxic energy and energy field. That stuff is very real too. Yeah, it really is. It's like when you're in this shit show and you're constantly ruminating about it, it's like you pull that negative crap to you. When you make that pivot, it's like it's weird. Everything changes. It's definitely a unique experience. Okay, on that, we are down to the last little bit. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it. I hope you have an outstanding rest of your day and can make a decent Christmas out of this. I do want to thank the channel members who have so graciously hit that join button and picked a tier. I only had one tier, but whatever. Thank you guys so much. That helps keep the lights on, keeps me motivated to do this. And I really appreciate the support. On that, try to have a good rest of your day. Do not allow these people to destroy your life, even though they are trying to, and take your life back. On that, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow at 6 a.m. Pacific for the daily Break the Cycle with DSD live show. All right, guys, take care.